Hi, my name is Dave Boddy with We Can Rise Up here in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. Please, if you're interested in booking one of our speakers for an appearance at your school, youth group, etc., please visit www.wecanriseup.com. I'm going to speak with you this evening about my dealings with narcotics, gangs, and some serious instances in which I dealt with during my 7-year career in security. Now, the instances that I have dealt with in security, some are pretty detailed and some are pretty graphic, I'm not going to lie. However, these instances helped me become the individual that I am today, which is I'm non-judgmental, very outgoing, very calm, very relaxed. And this is in part due to dealing with these severe, intense, and just traumatic situations in my 7 years of security. Also, some of these instances I will explain, I suffered some pretty good injuries, such as lacerations to my pinky, concussions, dislocated shoulder, bruises, the typical battle wounds that one sustains during physical removals and arrests. Now, first I'm going to speak about my situations with narcotics, and you'll see that it goes into like a story. Like it starts off young, and slowly you'll understand as to why I got into security and as to why I grew to love it. Now, my first incident and my first interaction with narcotics was in grade 7. I was attending Father Scolin Elementary Junior High. It was after school. I was with a bunch of my friends. I believe there were 7, including me, total. We were just sitting down in my buddy's basement. He had like a little basement suite. So we're sitting down there just hanging out, having fun, joking around, complaining about school, complaining how we hate our teachers, the typical grade 7 conversation amongst youth. However, soon enough, I forget who it was, but I know it was a male, started passing out a marijuana joint. Well, soon enough it came to me. I remember in the position that I was sitting, I had the guy with my left hand. And it was in my left hand, it's in my fingers, and the smell was rancid. I could not stand the smell. It just gave me a headache, and I just couldn't handle it. So, being that I was bullied and I felt isolated, I'm not gonna lie, I had that peer pressure mentality where I almost gave in and did it just to fit in with the crowd, just to feel accepted amongst this group. However, I made a decision to say no. Although, I'm not gonna lie, I was very scared. I was very worried as to what would happen if I said no, considering everyone around me was doing it except for me. However, I said no. When I said no, the traditional, very common situation occurred where I started having names being thrown at me. I was yelled at, sworn at. I just couldn't take it, so I got up to walk away. He had to go up the stairs to get to his front door. So I went to get up, started walking towards the front door. However, I wouldn't say as soon as I stood up, but as soon as I got up and I had balance and began to walk forward, I had someone throw an ashtray and hit me right in the left side of my face. I was upset. I was extremely embarrassed. I was angry. It affected me. That was my first ever dealing with marijuana. However, my father and my stepmother and I, we shortly moved to the southeast in the Forest Lawn. That's when I got transferred to Bishop Kidd Junior High, which allowed me to be connected with some of my elementary friends. However, at the same time, my elementary bullies. Now, being I was going through the same phase I was going through elementary, which was anger, aggression, isolation, depression, never happy. I didn't care how I looked. I wore baggy jeans with disgusting t-shirts. I didn't care. I had no reason in my mind to even care. So I started hanging around with our next door neighbors while we lived on in Forest Lawn. Now, the next door neighbor that I hung out with were very into the narcotic scene, and one of them was into the gang scene. I was very smitten, if you will. I had a huge crush on the female that lived next door to us. So I went through the whole traditional gotta impress her and try to act as the whom I'm not to try to get her attention to look at me. We became very close friends. And with us being close, I started hanging around with her and her friends, which, looking back at now, was not a smart idea, considering her boyfriend at the time was a gang member and had a history of violence and a history of criminal assaults. So I should have known better. But like I said, in the situation, in the mental state I was in, it seemed to be the appropriate decision to do. I needed to be accepted by someone. Being I had everyone making fun of me and bullying me, I just to have someone say, "Hey, you're a cool kid. Come be one of our, members." I didn't realize what that meant at the time. However, I was hanging out with her late at night one night, and that's when I noticed, that's when I observed my first ever narcotic transaction. Um, you may, automatically assume it was just marijuana. However, it was marijuana and some of, I believe she wouldn't tell me the details, but she did give a couple street names referencing to as cocaine. I can't confirm that. However, I saw the transaction, and I'm not gonna lie, it was kind of interesting because you see it in movies, music videos, and etc. And you hear about it, but to see it was kind of surreal. I didn't understand what was going on. Shortly after that, I saw my first gang initiation with her boyfriend. This individual came and started hanging out. Now, if you really think about the history of gangs, they will not allow just some random young male or young female hang out and witness initiation unless they had interest in initiating that person personally or they trusted that person. So, looking back now, these individuals were probably not real-time gang members, considering the ignorance it was to have me, an outsider, there witnessing all this, considering I could have just went to the authorities and turned them all in. However, I saw the initiation. I saw this individual get beat down in a little small park in the central of Forest Lawn, right by Forest Lawn High School. That scared me. I was extremely petrified. I did not know what was going on. However, I still hung out with this female up until we moved from that area. And then throughout high school and towards the end of junior high is when you start to realize the people you hang out with aren't really who they are. I thought these individuals were my friends. I thought they were my acquaintances. I thought they were pretty cool people. However, as soon as you grow up and you start getting older and wiser, as they say, you realize that the way you're thinking now, you kind of wish you thought back then. The decision you made, everyone says don't live life with regrets. I live my life with regrets. The reason why is those regrets motivate me and they inspire me to never make those mistakes again. They also motivate and inspire me to help other individuals avoid making the mistakes that I did and witnessing what I saw. Going through what I went through. I went through peer pressure with relevance to marijuana through all of high school. There's numerous individuals that are constantly consuming it, constantly dealing it on school property. A couple of my football players I play with were doing it, and we're all constantly pressuring me to do it. However, I've never smoked marijuana. I've never smoked a cigarette. I had my first alcoholic beverage when I was 18. I only drank half of it. And the reason why that is through all my years of depression and bullying and peer pressure, deep down inside I never did what I didn't want to do. I never wanted to smoke marijuana. I never wanted to try any recreational drug. I never wanted to smoke a cigarette. Therefore, I never did it. I'm not going to lie, I put myself in situations where I probably could have begun to conduct that behavior. However, I always had the mentality of learn from other people's mistakes. So, being that I dealt with all these narcotic issues and seeing the transactions, seeing the initiation with the gang members, seeing the use of narcotics, it gave me a driven passion that I didn't really realize until I started security when I was 18. As soon as I started witnessing all this, I started building I guess you can say, a hatred to marijuana, a hatred towards recreational drugs, a hatred towards cigarettes, a hatred towards alcohol. Because from my experiences, nothing positive ever came out of any situation that involved any of those three. It was always negative. Always negative. I have no positive memories of any of those three ingredients in an experience. It's always been negative. So when my father approached me when I was 18 because I needed a job, I had just lost my contract with Zeller's overnights doing planograms and I guess I can say stocking shelves. I needed a job. So my father hinted to go work with Stampede Security for the season of Stampede. I said, alright, you know what, I need the money, I got bills to pay, might as well give it a shot. My first night shift, it was 1500 to 0300 hours in the morning, which is 3 o'clock p.m. to 3 o'clock in the morning. 12-hour shifts, 12 days straight. My first night, I put on the uniform. I had no idea what I was getting myself into. I wasn't really excited. I was more or less nervous, and I had that mentality of, okay, I'll do this, get the paycheck, and leave. Well, the first night I got into a fight. An individual was urinating on the exterior barricade of the property in which I was delegated to patrol and watch. The supervisor at the time felt I was a big guy, I should get used to doing approaches. So I did the approach. I'm not gonna lie, I was nervous because the guy was pretty much the same size as me at the time. I've never really had that sort of a conversation or any reason to have a conversation in which I was about to have with this individual, telling him to stop doing what he was doing and get out. It was very awkward for me. I was very uncomfortable. However, I began to speak to the male. I informed him what he was doing, and it's not tolerated nor allowed. It's just time to leave. Well, obviously the male was intoxicated, therefore he had superhuman strength in his mind, so he refused to leave. Therefore, I got a hold of my supervisor, and my supervisor elected us to physically remove him out of the cook shack in which I was watching, and that way Park Patrol can take it from there. Well, as soon as we went to grab the individual, just to politely escort him out, he resisted. And it turned into a fall-out brawl. I had no training before this. I had no self-defense. All I had was like professional wrestling training that I grew up with, suplexes and grapples. So I basically went to my instincts and just took him down. Used my football training at the time. Well, as soon as we got the male controlled and we got him out of the area in which I was posted on, I realized that the adrenaline rush that I just experienced was extremely powerful. I was hooked. Immediately, I figured, you know what, this is what I want to do. I love this. This is just an amazing experience. So I did the whole 12 days. The first season was amazing. I had some good incidents. My father and I actually got into an altercation with these couple of intoxicated males that got into a fight. The radio call, my dad heard it, he came. That was an amazing experience. To get into a situation with my father even drove my passion more. I started slowly realizing that it was a hidden blessing. It was like, out of nowhere, I gave a shot on something that I didn't really have any interest in, except for watching the reality show Cops. I've always been enticed by that show, but never to the element in which I figured it would be a career of mine. So I started doing concerts with a local security company. Concerts such as Rolling Stones, Aerosmith, Sarah McLachlan, Cher, numerous concerts, and that was a ride. I loved it. That's when I started to enroll, that's when I registered for Hilltop Security Academy, which taught me, self-defense, Criminal Code of Canada education, and general psychology. It was a great course. I passed it. I got 99% on my self-defense. I got 100% on my first aid and CPR. I started to realize that this was working out. I was really enjoying this. I was intellectual with it. It just felt natural. It was like I realized, holy cow, I have a meaning in my life. I'm going to chase this dream. That's when I started having the mentality of becoming a police officer, while at the same time I had the mentality of becoming a professional wrestler. It was kind of like the police was a backup to my wrestling, just in case the wrestling didn't work out. Well, I started doing loss prevention with Army and Navy across from Marlboro Mall. If anyone knows anything about Marlboro Mall in that area, it's a pretty rough neighborhood. There's a lot of criminal activity, a lot of negative individuals that walk and visit that mall in that area. Well, when I started working in Army and Navy, I had self-defense training, I had handcuff training. I was very excited to use it. So I started doing some arrests, and every arrest that I did at Army and Navy was phenomenal. It was an amazing time. Now, the incident that opened my eyes with the reality that there's always someone bigger than you. There's always someone bigger than you. May not be in size, but also may be in training and mentality, intelligence. I had a intoxicated Aboriginal male who was harassing one of our attendants, or employees, sorry. Um, it wasn't. I wouldn't even call it a conversation. I basically approached him, identified myself as the source of security, and as soon as I said that, he went berserk. It turned into a one-on-one brawl. Everyone around, as witnesses, stood back and just watched. Eventually, after taking some punches to the face and some good knees from him, I eventually got him physical restraints, aka handcuffs, arrested him for assault. Got him charged. Job well done. Made me realize though that I needed to get some more training. So I completed the self-defense with Hilltop Security Academy. At the time, I was enjoying my loss prevention gig with Army and Navy. However, it wasn't paying much. The hours weren't consistent. So I revisited a mall that I'm very familiar with, which was Marlboro Mall. I started applying for security tests at the time. I got hired. I didn't even give notice to Army and Navy, which I kind of regret. However, I was supposed to work a Friday shift, had my interview that Friday afternoon, went to interview with Marlboro, got the job, quit. Now, Marlboro Mall is a place that I will forever hold in my heart. That mall, it was an environment that helped me grow as a security professional, as a human being, as me. Like, it helped mold who I am today. The stuff that I dealt with, the situations I saw, the people I dealt with and the people I saw, great stories, great experiences. My first ever shift there, we had to arrest a male for theft. This male, like I said, I won't say any names, out of there's no relevance to it. You don't need to know these people's names. However, I'll tell the situations though, of course. He was stealing from 3 female apparel stores. They were all female apparel. We were watching him from across the storeway over at San Francisco store. When he exited, we went to arrest him. He fought pretty good. It was myself and a female officer. He fought very good, and it was a good brawl. However, eventually got him restrained via backup. Took him to the holding area, and I asked him a question, just a simple question that I guarantee you would ask as well in this situation. And the question was, why are you stealing from female stores? The answer in which this male gave me was very disturbing, considering it was my first night and my first shift in Marlboro Mall security. His answer, word for word, was, quote me on it, take him to the grave, it's the truth. He said, I have a lot of girls that call me daddy. In that moment, I realized that this place which I was working for was going to be a great place to work for experience with relevance to policing and general psychology of security. I was motivated. When I heard that answer, it motivated me to catch these guys. Cause I was like, no, that's a very perverse and very out there answer, and it drove me. I was like, okay, I'm going to take this seriously. I'm going to get all the learning I can. So within the first 3 months or 6 months of working there, I dealt with stabbings. We had an individual get stabbed in his right knuckles, which allowed blood to be all throughout the food court, at customer service desk, at entrance number 2, which was right by Smitty's. He had blood everywhere, so my supervisor and I took him to the back hallway to give him first aid. During that experience, he started saying he had AIDS. He was HIV positive, so he started throwing his hand around, which started spraying blood all over the back hallways. So my supervisor and I, for our personal safety, we backed off. We said, okay, we did what we can for you, you're on your way. As he was leaving, we walked him out. We saw him leave. However, 15 minutes later, we got a call about some customers complaining that a male approached them and got blood all over their international clothes bag. We knew exactly who it was. We found the male again, removed him again. I dealt with numerous intoxicated individuals, and I will say, when you're dealing with an intoxicated individual, it's 50-50. You either will be able to reason with them, or you're going to have to brawl them. One or two that happen. There's a very rare occasion where they'll cooperate and have a good sense of humor and leave. Very rare. I dealt with the April 17th, 2007. Sorry, it's a incident that I've always used in all my interviews, because we had a female medically die. She died in the food court of Marlboro. My partner and I started doing CPR with the assistance of a off-duty paramedic. While we're doing the CPR, her boyfriend or husband or brother, we don't know who he was on scene, as well as her son in a shopping cart. While we were doing chest compressions and breathing, her, I guess I'll say the male acquaintance started becoming very aggressive with me. The 2-year-old, 3-year-old, rough age for the son or child, was screaming. It was a very intense situation, knowing that I, alongside my partner, was dealing with a deceased female. After calming the male down and at the same time calling 911, we got the female revived within, I think it was 30 seconds or almost a minute it took. We got her revived, EMS right on scene. That situation, it was very mentally draining. And I guess you can say physically, considering I had to restrain the male and calm him down. But more so mentally. The fact that I literally had to delegate one of my officers to help this woman survive made me realize how important and how short life really is. Knowing that if I made one wrong mistake, one wrong delegation, one wrong order from my officer, that we could have messed up and she could have been clinically dead. More so, and she would have been revived. It took a lot of me. I remember I went home that night and my wife was very concerned as to what happened, so I explained it to her. To this day, it still bothers me some days, but I'm very, very happy the fact that we dealt with it the way we did. While working on Marlboro, I had the experience of dealing with gangs again, which made me finalize my decision, which was my goal with Calgary Police was to be a street cop for 5 years and then apply for the gang drug unit. That was my goal. And the reason why is my gang interaction at Marlboro was intense. Constantly, we're dealing with members from Red Alert, juggalos, unknown soldiers, aka unknown thugs, juggalettes, some other random ones that aren't really even worth mentioning. However, every third or fourth group we approached were gang members that were distributing narcotics or just conducting negative business on the property. It escalated to the point where I intervened in narcotic transactions, which allowed the gang members to feel that they were justified in uttering death threats to myself and my family and to my co-workers, yada yada yada. I dealt with numerous individuals that actually confirmed and made me realize that gang life is a lot more intense than what movies and TV shows really, detail to you. Because I have a saying where if you have not dealt with a certain experience yourself, you have no sentimental or no emotional attachment to understand the mentality that you go through, the thought process, the fear. I'm not gonna lie, when I dealt with gang members and intervening narcotic transactions, I was scared. There was a part of me down inside that was scared. However, I couldn't show it. Couldn't. I had to be, authoritative. I had to be aggressive. I had to be straightforward with these individuals. Shortly, into that situation, my supervisor and I started partnering with Calgary Police Service. We started conducting a lot more patrols and a lot more interventions with suspicious activity. We started approaching more individuals, and we started to realize that there was a lot of gang activity in the Marlboro area that we didn't really determine or we didn't really expect. There wasn't a week that went by where I did not have one shift that I dealt with gang activity or narcotic activity. The biggest story that I remember vividly is when I was working loss prevention at Sears. I was working loss prevention at Sears. I went to go use the public washroom, so I wasn't close to the staff washroom. Well, I went in and started, using the washroom, and four, dark males entered the bathroom and started conversing about drug deal. Literally right behind me. How my partner at the time made a radio call to ask where I was. They heard the radio call, which immediately got them defensive, and I literally had to talk my way out of getting out of that bathroom alive, knowing that I just intervened in what they said was a heroin transaction. I had to weasel my way out, speak my way out, because their first initial reaction was, I'm not going to lie, was to hurt me. Was to make it so I don't snitch, in their words, snitch or rat out or tell the authorities. It got to the point where most of my shifts were delegated to patrol and just work our rear ends off getting these gangs out of the Marlboro area. and doing whatever we could to rid them, because it got to the point that they weren't scared of the law. They were conducting their business blatantly in front of our entrance doors, blatantly in the parking lot. We had numerous gun calls, numerous weapon complaints. Now, I'm not saying any of these stories to diminish the image of Marlboro Mall. I'm not saying this to affect their business. I'm not saying this to deter individuals that go shopping in the mall. Because I will tell you, that mall is safe. It really is. However, working there as security is when you realize the stuff that goes on, the incidents that actually happen. But I'm not doing this or using Marlboro Mall's name in a negative way to deter you from shopping there. Shop there, have fun. However, you do deserve to know the situations that I personally dealt with that helped me become the person I am today. Consistently dealing with these individuals on a daily basis, I constantly changed my walking path home. I constantly never walked the same way home, considering I knew these individuals hung out in the area off property. So every night I was walking as if I was a gangbanger. I was walking as if I was a gang member, fear of my life. I was always curious to who was behind me. Every time I walked home, it felt like there was a risk of me running into one of the individuals and a problem arising. Not only was I dealing with gangs quite often, I got into a lot of physical altercations at Marlboro, which resulted in concussions and injuries. One situation, I got a concussion from a female. Yeah, I got a concussion from a female. I got hit in the head from a female. It was a domestic disturbance. I took my eyes off her for about, I don't know, trying to be accurate here, but I can't really exactly remember. I'll say minimum 10 seconds, because my partner was getting yelled at by the male. So I turned my head to look, and whack, she got me right in the temple, which sent me into extreme dizziness and an instant headache. However, I arrested her for assault, and she went away. I didn't get called for a court case, but I was off work for that concussion, I believe, of 3 weeks. I got my right pinky bit wide open during an altercation. A male was choking me out, so I tried to initiate a brachial stun, considering I had reasonable grounds to believe that he was trying to kill me, for lack of better terms. So I can justify using a brachial stun, which, if you use it in a certain way, it can be considered deadly force. However, I missed my strike, and somehow my right pinky ended up in his mouth, and he just clenched and would not let go. Therefore, I initiated 3 palm strikes to his jaw on an angle, that way I wouldn't compress my finger. He eventually let go, and my finger was bleeding all over the place. I had bruises on my throat. It was a good altercation. However, for safety reasons, I let the male run. We called 911. They eventually called him trying to steal a car. I had to go to court for that situation, had to identify him. He got busted. Good story. Good end. Another incident, I had to deal with an individual who I believe, I couldn't confirm, was under influence of PCP. The reason why I feel is that narcotic is he had no feelings. Nothing worked. Knee strikes, palm strikes, elbows, pressure points, nothing worked. The guy was a beast. And I found out he was 58 years old. However, he gave me a battle that felt like I was battling a 20-year-old veteran in the army of some sort. Like he was aggressive and just would not quit. I later found out he had a butterfly knife in his right pocket, in which he was trying to reach during our scuffle. I've been tested for HIV and Hep C twice, both from arrest situations. I got spit in the face, right in the left eye, by an individual who had blood on his lip from using a knife to open a product. Hit his lip, and he spat right in my left eye, which went into my eye. I had to get tested. I got tested again from another arrest where an individual urinated and defecated down my right leg. I had a cut from my son in that area from play wrestling with him. The urine and his feces got into the cut. Connecticut police confirmed he was HIV positive, had AIDS, and I had to get tested again for the second time. I've had knives pulled on me. I've responded to a numerous amount of gun complaints. I dealt with a lot of aggressive, intoxicated Aboriginal males and females. Dealing with these situations, it allowed me to realize that what we see on TV and movies actually does happen. And I was fortunate enough to be able to tell these stories and explain what I've been through and how I got over it. Now, don't forget, while I was dealing with all these gang interactions and narcotic transactions, I was dealing with personal issues. I was dealing with my own sort of depression, my own concussion history. I was dealing with my own personal depression. I was going through a lot. However, for some reason, working security helped me get over that in a way, I guess you can say, because when I worked, I was focused. I guess you can say I took my job very seriously. However, being I was in a position where I was dealing with individuals that were conducting severe criminal offenses and that were actually dangerous, I had to take my job seriously to get home to my wife and my son. I don't have any regrets in my security career except for the fact I have one regret, and that was I should have taken better care of myself. With all these injuries I suffered, I never given much time to heal. I always went back and got into more brawls and more brawls and more brawls. Eventually, I started to feel selfish. I started to feel that I didn't care how my wife felt or how this affected my son. I was chasing my police dream. It was everything to me. While I was doing my security, I was also doing wrestling training. I was doing them both at the same time. However, it came to the point where I had to make the decision, which was to either stick with security and risk my life some more, literally, because with every concussion I got, the consequences were increased drastically. As you know from my previous video about depression and suicide, where my concussions led, so I'm not going to go into that right now. Another story we had an intoxicated male physically assault a female paramedic in front of the Walmart. So we had to take the male down. Male was very aggressive, very resistant, so we had to physically hold the male while the paramedic initiated a needle to calm him down. Witnessing that male get a needle in his rear end and calm him right down was surreal. I didn't realize what was happening. Later on, though, we put in the back of the police cruiser. For some reason, I guess the medicine that he was provided wore off, and he started banging his head against the security grate inside the cruiser, which gashed his head wide open. So the police officer we had to drag him out again, blood all over the place. Oh, jeez. It made you realize that personal addictions and narcotic use and alcohol abuse affects not only your life, but it affects people all around you. I was involved in so much situations where other people put my life at risk while I was trying to help them. But it never stopped me. I went to work every single day knowing I was going to deal with someone different, deal with a different situation entirely. And it motivated me knowing that I was able to be in a position to help people. Knowing that I was able to speak to people about drug use and help them through it somehow, or give them some, I guess, say, information that can help them motivate themselves to making a good decision to either quit the narcotic use or get help. I'm not going to lie though, I've had numerous people die that I dealt with and I tried to help. Which, when you get into a physical altercation or arrest with someone that you're trying to help, and when you have that moment to talk to them and figure out what's wrong with them, what they need help with, and you try to help them, later on you find out that they're deceased, it kind of makes you feel like you could have done more for them to help them. I've had to deal with four individuals that I dealt with constantly are now deceased, and there's days where I feel I should have done more or something else, but I can't do it to myself. I can't do it no more. Dealing with these individuals made me realize that life is unpredictable. You don't ever know what's going to happen. You can be a straight A student, but also out of nowhere you hang with the wrong person, and your life can go right downhill. The good thing about that is once you hit rock bottom, there's nowhere else to go down. You can only go up from there. Excuse me. I'll be honest. I've seen some individuals I dealt with that are now doing very well with their lives. I actually saw a female arrested a couple years ago on the bus about a month ago, and she told me that her life is doing amazing. I had a youth that I helped while I worked at Monterey Mall, and she's doing phenomenal. So I've seen it. I've seen criminals turn. I've seen them turn to be good. I've seen them change their life from a negative and make it into a positive. And that helped me to not judge people. It made me realize, being in a position of security and authority, that I'm not in a position to judge someone. I'm not in a position to belittle someone. I'm not in a position to tell them what to do with their life. I don't have that power or nor that right. The only power and the only right I have is to help someone. Sorry. You have two choices when you approach someone and when you notice that they need help. You can kick them while they're down, or you can help them up. And I promise you, there's a lot more satisfaction and a lot more long-term positive outcomes for helping someone. I had guys bite my pinky. I've had guys urine, defecate, spit on me. But at the end of the day, I never once judged them. I never once beat them when they were down. I always forgave them. And the simple reason for that is, individuals that are under influence of narcotics or alcohol, they're not themselves. When that addiction takes them over, they become so far from who they really are that the only way that they can get back is if they get help. And the more that we push these people to the streets and just verbally beat them down and judge them, what we're doing is we're becoming an enabler to their behavior. We're actually setting them up to fail more. And being that I personally went through depression, being that I personally went through a life where I was judged for being aggressive, being a moron. I was called so many names. It made me realize that as long as you're alive, you have the opportunity to change. You have the opportunity to become the person you want to be. I guarantee you, you go through life, you'll never find someone who grew up wanting to be a drug dealer, wanting to be a prostitute, wanting to be a drug addict, an alcohol addict. Like, no one grows up wanting to be an alcoholic. No one grows up with the aspirations of being a drug dealer. Something happens to these individuals that make them feel that that's the only way that they can go. There's a popular saying that goes, everything happens for a reason. I'm a firm believer that everyone acts a certain way for a reason, and until we find out why that person acts the way that they are, we can't help them. All we're going to do is sit there and judge them. We're just going to constantly bully them, but yet we're going to go and explain to youth that bullying is not acceptable. You see, we will never cure bullying as an adult. We'll never be able to convince youth to stop bullying until we stop being hypocrites. I was a hypocrite. I bullied people all the time. For 5 years, I was very angry, very bitter. No one was as good as I was for 5 years. I was a hypocrite. Dealing with all these people, seeing how they live, seeing all the mistakes that they were living, I realized I had to do something to change. I had to stop being a hypocrite. I had to step up. I had to rise up and help people. And that's why I explained to you my dealings with narcotics and gangs and some of these severe security incidents I dealt with. It helped me become the man I am today. I personally saw and observed these individuals with alcohol abuse problems and narcotic addiction problems. And I've seen how they become when they get help. Everyone deserves a second chance. Everyone deserves a chance to be helped. No one deserves a chance to be kicked down and judged and further pushed down in their downward spiral. Here at We Can Rise Up, we strive to prove everyone wrong. And that is, everyone can be happy. Everyone can walk down their street and not be judged and bullied. Because that's the life in which we all should live. There's no positive outcome, there's no positive gain in judging someone, in belittling them. There's nothing positive that can come from it. It doesn't make you feel better. It doesn't make you look better. And it sure does not make them feel or look better. Here at We Can Rise Up, we are here to teach. We're here to help. We're here to make people aware that judgments and bullying have no place on this earth. No place at all. It's that simple. Bullying is not a positive influence on anyone's life. Therefore, when you feel the urge to judge someone, I want you to think of something. I'm going to dare you to go look in a mirror, and I want you to belittle yourself verbally for 10 minutes. You won't do it. You won't do it. You know for a fact you will not go look in that mirror and make fun of yourself for 10 minutes because you know for a fact you won't like it. So the next time you want to go and judge someone for 10 minutes and belittle them and bully them, think of that being you. Treat someone else as you would like to be treated. We all have mistakes. Sorry, we all have weaknesses. We all have strengths. No one's better than anyone else. I used to think I was better than everybody else for 5 years. I never realized I'm equal. There's a reason why we all have strengths, a reason why we all have weaknesses. It defines us as an individual. And until we learn that we can make our weakness a strength through someone else, I'm not going to judge a prostitute. I'm not going to judge someone who is an alcoholic. I want to learn from them. I want to speak to them and figure out how I can prevent myself from going on that path and someone else. How they got through it. I'm going to speak to a prostitute and I'm going to figure out as to why it is that he or she felt that was a good life decision to make. I don't judge these people. I learn from them. And the moment we can learn from people's mistakes is the moment that, as one, we can all rise up. So please, don't bully. Don't judge. It doesn't solve any problems. It just creates more. Thank you for listening and have a good night.